Good evening. Right now, companies are beginning to censor and deplatform people that are connected in some way, shape, or form to President Trump. However, don't worry, because this is not totalitarianism. It's being done by corporations. Meanwhile, at the U.S. southern border, President Trump has marked 400 miles of new wall completion. However, this comes at a time when a new caravan is being formed down in Honduras, planning to make its way up here to the U.S. Now, over in Michigan, a group of investigators who looked into the 2020 election, they asked the judge in their case to remain anonymous for their own personal safety reasons. However, the judge has refused and is now planning to reveal their identities. Let's go through these stories together. This is your 2020 election update, and I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Now let's start today's discussion by talking about the Supreme Court. If you remember, prior to January the 6th, there were a number of election-related lawsuits that were filed either by President Trump or by his supporters that were making their way up the circuit to be eventually heard by the Supreme Court. However, with just about a week left before January the 20th, the Supreme Court dismissed the emergency applications seeking to fast-track these lawsuits. And basically, as their usual custom, the Supreme Court did not explain why they dismissed these emergency applications, and there were no dissents from any of the 9 justices on the bench, at least none that were noted, none that were made public. And so now, these lawsuits, which concern the elections in several states in Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, are now basically in legal purgatory, waiting to be processed sometime down the line. However, you will likely hear nothing about them. That's because social media censorship has clamped down like never before. In fact, if you have a Facebook account, make sure that you do not post anything with the term "Stop the Steal." That's because Facebook announced yesterday that it's removing all content that contains that phrase ahead of January the 20th. In a statement they released, here's what they had to say. "We have been allowing robust conversations related to the election outcome, and that will continue. But with continued attempts to organize events against the outcome of the U.S. presidential election that can lead to violence, and use of the term by those involved in Wednesday's violence in D.C., we're taking this additional step in the lead-up to the inauguration." So there you have it. Facebook furthermore said that they have teams working 24/7 to enforce its policies these days. They also said that they have already removed a significant number of posts on their platform. Now, censorship is not only happening online on platforms like Facebook. Just yesterday, Jason Miller, who is a Trump campaign advisor, he said that he was barred from entering a studio, a filming studio over in Washington, D.C., in order to film an interview with Fox Business. And he said that it was because his name has been put on some list. On Twitter, he wrote that, "Wow, the anti-Trump censorship deplatforming is out of control. Just went to the Live Shots studio in D.C. to join Fox Business, and the Live Shots employees told me I'm not allowed to use their studios because I'm on a list." Now you might be asking yourself, what list is that? Well, Miller actually asks them what sort of list he's on and why the studio accepted the booking in the first place if that was the case. And he was told by the employees there that the list was for health reasons. Now he inquired further, and here's what he said happened. "I inquired a little more since I haven't been around anyone with COVID-19, and I was told they have a list of people they won't allow in because of like who you've been around at the White House and stuff, and it's because of health reasons." Now he went on to further say that censorship and deplatforming might start with just one person, but if they're willing to do it to the President of the United States, these companies are willing to do it to anybody, especially any of the 75 million Americans who voted for President Trump. Now, we here at the Epoch Times, we reached out to Live Shots, the studio in D.C., for comment, but have yet to hear back. However, within the realm of companies censoring businesses that have some connection to President Trump, this is not the first case. In fact, after January the 6th, at least we've counted 13 companies or services, have taken action against President Trump or his supporters. For instance, just yesterday, Stripe and Shopify announced that they will withhold their services. Stripe, which is a payment processing company, they said that they will not process payments for Trump's campaign. And Shopify, they took down the online stores for both the Trump organization as well as Trump's campaign because they say that they do not tolerate actions that incite violence. In a statement, Shopify wrote that Based on recent events, we have determined that the actions by President Donald J. Trump violate our acceptable use policy, which prohibits promotion or support of organizations, platforms, or people that threaten or condone violence to further a cause. As a result, we have terminated stores affiliated with President Trump. Now, of course, these rules, much like the Twitter ban, are highly based on interpretation. You can't point to anything President Trump said specifically that invoked violence. But within this sort of logic, the totality of it is what he said was sort of a dog whistle that looks like normal speech to you and me, but to some crazed individual out there, to some hypothetical individual, it means something else, something sinister. Now, we reached out to the Trump campaign for comment on all of these happenings, but have yet to hear back. Now, I want to read to you something a little bit different. This was an essay that was published online by a friend of mine, actually. It's pretty short. It's only about 1 page. But I believe it captures the zeitgeist of what's happening in this country right now perfectly. Let's read it together. It's titled, "The Parallel Economy is Coming." For generations, Americans lived under the assumption that while politics are vicious, third parties and neutral entities such as banking and commerce, etc., are open to all and not part of the political struggle. Hence, neither political party would in turn see these third parties as their political enemy. That was true as long as these entities were American. Now, ever-encroaching globalism has taken over many American institutions. Their money and influence had decided to overtly take one side of the political aisle and waged a wicked, this is a Chinese quote, drive and kill all approach. American conservatives and liberty movements in general never expected third parties to suddenly engage in such a vicious political genocide and was caught unprepared for years. Build your own internet, they said. But the internet was built with resources and efforts of all Americans. Why do we have to build a new one when we also had contributions and money in the existing one, willingly or via government? It doesn't just belong to one ideology. That's why it thrived. Notwithstanding, with the new onslaught of canceling all conservative and liberty-minded voices across all platforms, the traditional right and liberty-minded are suddenly faced with the task of building a parallel economy just to exist in this world. The banking system had been slowly denying various persona non grata industries their services. Many people who fell into the unwelcome political categories had their GoFundMe accounts denied, while the other side enjoyed endorsement in millions and billions from high tech. Build your own platform, they said. Yes, it is undeniable that it is the only way forward for many Americans. We, the liberty-minded individuals, have become outcasts in the society we built and were taxed under. Now, the unwelcome minority will have to replicate, reproduce, and repopulate every service they had used. You think only you know how to code? It seems dark and evil because 2021 is year number 1 of the Great Rebuild. Be thankful that their mask has been torn down, and the Great Awakening of the unwilling henceforward will recreate the world that we used to be a part of. It will look rudimentary, if not ridiculous at the beginning, but give it time, and you will be seething with anger and jealousy, hoping to destroy that, too. This will make the mostly peaceful divorce from an abusive, violent spouse possible when he no longer controls your checkbook, your car key, and your cell phone. I thought that was very, very, very well written. If you have some thoughts on this, leave a comment in the description box below this video and let me know what you think. By the way, if you want to read about anything that we've discussed so far, about the Supreme Court dragging their feet, about this Facebook censorship, or about these corporations deplatforming people, those links will be in the description box below this video for you to check out for yourself. And while you're down there, take a quick moment to smash that like button. Because as you can tell, corporations, social media platforms, they're fighting back against people who speak honestly. Of course, there's people who are violent, but then there's just people who speak honestly about what's happening in this world, like our channel, at least what we tried to do. And yet, we're being censored for it. But when you smash that like button that's below this video, you are forcing the YouTube algorithm, the same algorithm that suppresses our videos, to push this video out to potentially thousands and more people, letting the truth be known far and wide. Now, let's talk about the topic of deplatforming a little bit more. Yesterday, the New York State Bar Association announced that they are starting an investigation into removing Rudy Giuliani from their organization. Now, of course, for your reference, you might already know, Rudy Giuliani was President Trump's personal lawyer, and he led a lot of the election fraud-related lawsuits around the country. The State Bar Association, they said in the last few months, they have received hundreds of complaints about Rudy Giuliani regarding his work in challenging the election results in several swing states. Now, even though legal cases that were brought forth by Rudy Giuliani were dismissed by the courts, that was actually primarily due to a lack of standing, not based on any of the merits or demerits of the case. Now, of course, as with almost everything on the news nowadays, between the lines is that Rudy Giuliani was somehow responsible for what happened at the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th. However, Rudy Giuliani has condemned the violence, saying on Twitter that it was as criminal as the rioting and looting this summer, which was not condemned strongly enough by the left. This violence is condemned in the strongest terms. Our movement values respect for law and order and for the police. Regardless, nowadays, even that message by Rudy Giuliani might be interpreted as some kind of a dog whistle for more violence. So I have nothing to add about that. If you'd like to read more about the New York Bar Association's investigation into potentially removing Rudy Giuliani, I'll throw those links into the description box below this video for you to check out. And now let's head on over to the southern border. Now, about 2 months ago, actually about 1 week before the 2020 election, I got a chance to visit the U.S. southern border myself and see some of the new border wall that has been constructed. Here's a short montage that we put together. To the left of me here, you will see part of the 300 miles of new wall built along the U.S.-Mexico border, a physical embodiment of the Trump administration's border policy. Now, earlier today, President Trump went to the U.S.-Mexico border in order to highlight his administration's work on the border wall. Specifically, he visited Alamo, Texas, and marked the completion of 400 miles of new border wall, as well as his administration's efforts to reform what they described as the nation's broken immigration system. Now, just as an aside, I want to mention that Joe Biden, he has vowed to halt any further border wall construction, just so you know. Now, at the same time that this is happening, there is a migrant caravan trying to work its way north. The United States, its Central American allies, as well as Mexico, however, said that they will not allow this group of migrants that are currently in Honduras right now getting ready for a trip north from traveling to the U.S. border. That was according to a senior U.S. border official, by the way. The Hondurans forming the caravans are using WhatsApp and Facebook groups, some of which have thousands of members, to organize another caravan that's scheduled to leave from San Pedro Sula, which is a city in Honduras, on January the 15th. Now, the acting commissioner at the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, he issued a statement saying that, "Do not waste your time and money, and do not risk your safety and health. Migrant caravan groups will not be allowed to make their way north in violation of the sovereignty, standing public health orders, and immigration laws of the respective nations throughout the region." This, by the way, would be the second caravan to leave Honduras since the hurricanes Ida and Iota devastated that country. The last caravan was back in December, and it got to Guatemala but was dispersed by authorities before being able to reach Mexico. Now, while we're on the subject of Honduras, however, I want to talk about something else interesting that's happening. The U.S. federal prosecutors here in the U.S., they have filed motions saying that the president of Honduras, a man named Juan Orlando Hernandez, he took bribes from drug traffickers, and he had the country's armed forces protect a cocaine lab and protect cocaine shipments to the United States. In those documents by the federal prosecutors, the Honduran president is quoted as saying that he wanted to shove the drugs right up the noses of the gringos by flooding the United States with cocaine. Now, besides the president, these motions also implicate Honduran senior military, police, political, and business figures in laundering money and bribery. If you'd like to read more about the border wall, the caravan, or these developments with the Honduran presidents and senior Honduran officials, those links will be in the description box below this video for you to check out for yourself. And now let's head on over to Michigan. If you remember, last year, although that sometimes feels like a lifetime ago, there was a forensic audit that was conducted on the voting machines in Antrim County. Now, the investigators who actually conducted that forensic audit, they entered a motion into court asking the circuit judge to keep their identity secret for fear of their own personal safety. Their lawyer argued that the forensic exam team feared that disclosing the names and personal information, such as resumes, CVs, addresses, and employers, will be detrimental to the forensic investigators. However, the judge in that case, he disagreed, and he ruled yesterday that the state can release the names of the people in this investigation team. The judge, he said that As for the release of the witnesses by name and their identifying business associations, the court believes that is, frankly, part of the process. However, while the names of these election investigators will be released, the judge in the case said that the personal information of them, such as phone numbers, will not be. It's very nice of him. Yesterday, Michigan's Attorney General, who is a Democrat, said that the state is drafting an order relating to the disclosure of the names and that we fully expect the plaintiff and his counsel to be forthcoming with those names. If you'd like to read more about this legal unmasking, those links will be in the description box below this video for you to check out. Lastly, I'd like to take a moment and introduce a new sponsor to our channel. Right now, as you can tell based on everything we've already discussed, both the platforms as well as advertisers are making a concerted effort to defund media outlets like ours, which report honestly about what's happening in this country right now. However, AMAC obviously cares enough about the truth to sponsor a channel like ours. Let me tell you a little bit more about them in the sound studio. All right, today's sponsor and our new sponsor to the channel is AMAC. That's AMAC, and it stands for the Association of Mature American Citizens. Basically, if you've heard of the double ARP, it's similar to that, but they have very strong conservative values, and in terms of the socialist storm that's brewing in this country, they fight back against it, not only on Capitol Hill, but also through the media. So basically, if you are interested in joining, it doesn't cost that much at all, actually, just a few dollars per year. It gives you a lot of benefits. It gives you money-saving benefits in insurance, in things like vitamins, in dining, and a bunch of other categories. I'll throw the link in the description below this video. You can check it out. But they also have a great bi-monthly magazine that's delivered right to your mailbox. And although you have to be 50 years old to join, so I obviously haven't joined, I have read their magazine before, and it's indeed pretty good. And so if you're interested in checking out, learning more, or joining AMAC, you can find the link in the description box below this video, or you can go to amac.us/facts matter. That's amac.us/facts matter. The link will be in the description box below this video. Check them out for yourself. And again, AMAC, thank you so much for sponsoring our video. Right now, when advertisers are very hard to find, when advertisers are actually going out of their way to avoid channels like ours, which report honestly, AMAC stepped up and sponsored our channel. So thank you very much. Check them out if you're interested. And otherwise, Roman in the studio, back to you. Now lastly, if you haven't already, smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you want honest news content delivered directly into your YouTube feed every single day. And until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed and stay free.